Touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Rammer, jammer, yellow hammer, come see how we rock this. Alabama fans, the best, there's no way you can top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
Welcome into The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I'm your host, Justin Smith, D-Scouting and Recruiting Analyst for Touchdown Alabama Magazine. As always, be sure to subscribe to Touchdown Alabama on YouTube to stay updated on everything Alabama football recruiting with The Process and yours truly. You guys can check out The Process every Monday and Wednesday on Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page exclusively. But on this episode of The Process, I want to take a look at Alabama's 2021 recruiting class and break down where their class currently stands. I know that Alabama is focusing on finishing out the 2020 recruiting class very strong with the National Signing Day being on February 5th, and they really want to close out that class in good fashion. But after that is done, they're going to want to focus on the 2021 recruiting class, and they have already begun doing that by landing 3 verbal commitments at the moment. But they also are hosting a big junior day on this Saturday against some of the top recruits in the 2021 recruiting class on the campus of the University of Alabama. I will break down some of the top talents and some of the guys that Alabama will have on campus this Saturday on the next episode of The Process. But on this episode, I just want to preview Alabama's 2021 recruiting class, where it currently stands, and some key targets who could commit to Alabama next after this junior day possibly. But before I dive deeper into that, I do have a couple of recruiting updates that do involve Alabama's 2020 recruiting class. Alabama did host 3-star defensive back Ennis Rickshaw Jr. out of Duncanville High School in Duncanville, Texas, for an official visit this past weekend. He said that visit went really well. Alabama also hosted that 3-star offensive lineman commit Damian George out of North Shore High School in Texas. Also, I got a chance to catch up with George. I said this on the latest episode of The Process. When I got a chance to catch up with George at the Under Armour All-America game practices in Orlando, Florida, he did express to me that Alabama was the team that he wanted to reach out to him during the month of February. He really wanted to talk to Alabama heading into National Signing Day, being that he was verbally committed to them and they really focused on him during his recruiting cycle, not really looking at him as a package deal. He really wanted to talk to Alabama. That's one of the things he told me during the Under Armour All-America practices. And I think Alabama getting him on campus this past weekend was huge for the Tide as far as them locking up his signature on National Signing Day on next month. Alabama also hosted a tight end out of North Carolina, a grad transfer tight end, and Carl Tucker. His dad told me that he was on the campus of the University of Alabama throughout this weekend from Friday through Sunday, and Alabama wants to add another tight end to the 2020 recruiting class with the incoming class they have coming in. They currently have a commitment and a signature from 4-star tight end Caden Clark out of Ohio, but they want to add on another guy, and Carl Tucker could be that guy with this nice blend of height and size. He has the size to block, but he also has the experience to be serviceable in the passing game, so he could be a good fit for Alabama moving forward in that tight end slot. So that is something to keep a note on as far as Alabama's 2020 recruiting class is concerned. Alabama also hosted a pair of 5-star guys in the 2021 recruiting class, and Dylan Brooks, a 5-star defensive end out of Hanley High School in Hanley, Alabama. He also hosted Amaris Mims, a 5-star offensive lineman, for an unofficial visit in the 2021 recruiting class this past weekend. So a lot of things happened for Alabama this past weekend. On yesterday, on Sunday, Alabama was in the final 3 for Alfred Collins, a 4-star defensive end, who I did express Alabama is pushing for heading into the traditional signing period in the month of February. On the last episode of The Process, I broke down Alfred Collins' recruitment, and it looks like Alabama is still in the mix. He will choose between Alabama, Oklahoma, and Texas on February 5th, live from Texas, live from his high school, Cedar Creek High School in Texas. So that is something else to keep a note on as far as Alabama still being in the mix for a 4-star defensive end. But to get this show started today, I do have a recruiting question I want to answer. So with that being said, let's get the process started. Now I'm going to go to my recruiting question that I have today. As always, you guys can call into The Process at 205-440-3968. Call into The Process, leave your recruiting question via voicemail, and it'll be answered right here on The Process exclusively by yours truly. And now we're going to go to our first question of the day.
Ty Talk Webb out of Marion. Hey, how you doing? Ty Talk Webb out of Marietta, Florida. Got a quick question for you. I feel like the last two recruiting cycles we have missed out on so many tight ends from 5 stars to 4 to 3. It seems like we're having an issue or a problem getting them to sign with us. I was wondering your thoughts on that. Also your thoughts on why in the world, I've said the last 2 years, Bama has missed out on some big 4 and 5 star receivers, playmakers, game changers out of the state of Alabama. And I'm wondering why. What is the disconnect? I know coaching staff turnover for 2 years, we struggled there and all that. But other than that, I don't see why they're not coming to Bama. But from having Tua and having the explosive quarterbacks we've had, and Bryce Young coming in, just kind of your thoughts on why we've missed on a lot of these receivers here lately, and what is our plans next year to rectify it? And do you have any names that you've heard of or kids you've talked to, big game-changing receivers that have Alabama on their big board for the upcoming 2021 recruiting cycle? Anyway, I appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing. I watch the show every single day that it's on. As soon as I see it on YouTube, I pop it up, watch it, love it. Diehard fan, a Tide fan for life. Love what you guys are doing. Keep it up, and God bless.
Thank you so much for your question. To answer the first part of your question here, when it comes to Alabama recruiting tight ends, they haven't really landed that big 4-star, 5-star tight end, not for a lack of effort, because Alabama's tight end coach Jeff Banks have recruited those guys hard. When it comes to Rick Gilbert, the 5-star tight end out of Georgia who signed with the LSU Tigers, Alabama's tight end coach Jeff Banks really pushed for Rick Gilbert. He visited Rick Gilbert a couple times. He talked with Rick Gilbert. At one point, it looked like Alabama was the favorite to get Rick Gilbert. Alabama hosted him for an official visit. When I talked to Rick Gilbert at the Nike opening in March, he told me that Alabama was definitely getting an official visit. He spoke about Jeff Banks telling him that they want to use him in the same way they use Irv Smith. So Jeff Banks have been pushing for these guys. And when you look at 4-star tight end Caden Clark, who signed with the University of Alabama in December, he told me when he gave Alabama his verbal commitment that him and Jeff Banks went into the film room and broke down Irv Smith's practice footage where he showed what Irv Smith was doing in practice before the season even started. So they are doing the work. I think it's going to pay off for them in the 2021 recruiting class, but I think they are in the right mindset, and I think they are moving forward as far as possibly landing a big time tight end in the 2021 recruiting class. A guy to look out for is 4-star tight end Hudson Wolf. Alabama's coaching staff did visit him at his school this past week, so that is a guy to look out for when it comes to the tight end position. When it comes to wide receivers, I know that Alabama in the 2019 recruiting cycle, they felt very comfortable with John Mechie being their only wide out. They made a late push for George Pickens, but they were really comfortable with John Mechie being their only wide out, with the fact that they had Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle already on the roster, so they felt comfortable adding on just John Mechie. When it comes to the 2018 recruiting class, Justin Ross was a huge miss, but I think the stacked Alabama wide receiver room that was going to be in front of him played a factor in that. And when he looked at Clemson, their wide receiver room was a bit more open. He also had a chance to compete for a national championship, and I think that also being coached under Dabo Swinney played a role in that, and that played a big role in Alabama's last loss in the national championship. Justin Ross's play, and he really made a good decision for him. But when it comes to Alabama recruiting wide receivers, I think it's gonna be bigger in the 2021 recruiting cycle, because they are after the number 1 wide receiver in the 2021 recruiting class, Ajay Hall. That is a guy to look out for. I did an interview with Hall on the Under Armour Future 50 media event. You can check out that interview on Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. So Ajay Hall is the guy to look out for when it comes to the 2021 recruiting class in Alabama recruiting wide receiver. He is the number 1 wide receiver in the 2021 recruiting class. Thank you so much for the question. I now want to take a look at Alabama's 2021 recruiting class and the verbal commitments that they do have at the moment. And the first guy I want to discuss is 4-star quarterback Drake May out of North Carolina. May is already a special recruit at 6'5" and 210 pounds. This is a guy who committed to Alabama in July. He has been on the campus of the University of Alabama for unofficial visits multiple times throughout the season. He visited Alabama in September, October, as well as November. During his junior season, he had a very productive year, throwing for 50 touchdowns, 3,512 yards. He was also 210 of 290 passing, so he was very productive. One of the top quarterbacks in the 2021 recruiting class. I think he's working the 7-on-7 circuit while he's finishing up the basketball season right now at the very moment. I think once he get a chance to go to some camps this summer and get a chance to work more and more in this game during the 7-on-7 circuit, I think he will still jump in his recruiting ranking from this next summer coming up. So Drake May is going to rise on some recruiting rankings in my mind. I think Alabama is in a good position with them at the moment, knowing that they hosted him. They do have a verbal commitment from him. He feels comfortable with this Alabama commitment. I think their biggest threat at this moment is North Carolina. It is his hometown school. His older brother, Luke May, currently plays for the North Carolina Tar Heels. He grew up watching North Carolina basketball. He's a basketball star himself. He's a guy who has been playing around with the possibility of playing basketball at the next level. So Alabama is in a good position with Drake May in my mind at the moment, but North Carolina is going to be around for most of his recruitment, continuing to push him, continuing to try to play on that home state thing. Latrell McCutcheon was Alabama's first verbal commitment in the 2021 recruiting class. Some of you may know McCutcheon from Friday Night Tykes, a hit show that the SRY TV network put together. You guys can check out some of those episodes on Netflix if you have that subscription. You can check out Latrell McCutcheon. I think he's featured on the first 2 seasons of that show on Netflix, so be sure to check out that if you want to see a little bit more about Latrell McCutcheon. He's the guy who I said was Alabama's first verbal commitment in the 2021 recruiting class. He did tear his ACL heading into his junior season, so he did not play his junior season, and Alabama knows that. He sat out and he has been going through the recovery process. Now, he did have a successful surgery earlier during the football season. His commitment to Alabama has stayed strong. A lot of schools have continued to offer him based on his film that he did have before he got injured, and based off the belief that he will come back at 100%. I think Alabama is still in a good position with Latrell McCutcheon. I think he's still open to all schools. I think his recruitment is pretty open. I think he's going to listen to all schools and give everybody a fair shot at the moment, but I think it's good that Alabama does have his verbal commitment. Deontay Lawson is Alabama's latest commit in the 2021 recruiting class. Lawson is the guy who I broke down when he first verbally committed to Alabama. You guys can check out that video on touchdownalabama.com. But Lawson is a very athletic kid, a long body kid who Alabama will most likely line up at the outside linebacker position. Alabama likes those long guys, long aggressive edge rushers on the outside rushing the quarterback. This is a guy who's very athletic from Mobile Christian High School. He lined up at wide receiver a lot. I think he was one of their starting wide receivers, making a lot of plays with those jump balls. So the athleticism is there. This is a guy who is fast off of the edge. I think Alabama is in a good position with him as well. With him being an in-state guy, I think he is one of Alabama's most solid commitments. Even though he is their more recent commitments, I think he is one of their more solid commitment when it comes to him looking at other schools. I think he is going to visit other schools like most of these guys are. It's early in their recruitment, so their recruitments are pretty open, but I think he's one of Alabama's more solid commitments in the 2021 recruiting class. So who are Alabama's top targets in the 2021 recruiting class? There are a lot of guys at the moment with Alabama only having 3 verbal commitments. The state of Alabama is stacked, and I think Alabama's really going to want to take advantage of that. But 3 guys who I think Alabama is leading for at the moment in Alabama's in a really good position for them. I'm going to break down 3 guys I think Alabama is in the best position with. And the first guy I want to talk about is a guy who I mentioned earlier in the show, and 5-star wide receiver Ajay Hall. Ajay Hall will make his verbal commitment. He said he would make his verbal commitment at the Under Armour 50 Media Day event. He said he was making his verbal commitment during the month of March 14th to be exact. He said he will take his official visits during the spring. He said he did have a top 3. I think his top 3 is Clemson, Alabama, and Georgia. He has not released that top 3 yet, but he said those are the 3 schools that will most definitely get an official visit from him. So it looks like those 3 schools are his top 3 at the moment. So Ajay Hall will take his official visit this spring. At this moment, he will take those visits and make his commitment in the month of March. I think Alabama is in a great position with him. He did express to me that he looks up to Jerry Jeudy. He really loves the town, the Tuscaloosa on game day. He has a lot of respect for the University of Alabama. I think that Alabama is gonna really push for him. He is the number one wide receiver in the 2021 recruiting class. They have had a lot of success with guys from South Florida, and I think he really wants to keep that pipeline going. He did speak to me about that in the interview that I have posted on Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. So Ajay Hall, a very special wide receiver out of Florida. I think Alabama is in a good position with him. He could be Alabama's next commitment, as he will announce his commitment at the moment. He said he will announce his commitment on March 14th unless something changes. Son Mache Adelaide, 5-star defensive end out of Texas, has been high on Alabama for quite some time now. The Katy High School product often told me that Alabama was his lead school. Alabama is the school that stands on top of his recruitment. Alabama has hosted him multiple times. He did express to me that he wants to get down to the University of Alabama on Junior Day. He has not made that official, but when I asked him about Alabama Junior Day, he said he was going to try to get down to see the University of Alabama. He has a lot of respect for Alabama as well. He constantly told me that, as I said, Alabama is his lead school, and I don't think there's no question about that. I think Alabama is the favorite at the moment, but a lot of schools are after this guy. LSU, Georgia, they're basically the schools that you expect to be after one of the top defensive ends in the nation. I think Alabama is in a good position at this very moment. I hope that it's in their hopes that they can get him on the campus of the University of Alabama for Junior Day. I think that will be huge for Alabama. I think this is a guy whose recruitment is gonna really drag out. I think a lot of schools are gonna really push for him, and Alabama's gonna have to battle it out to the end. They are in the mix, and they are the favorite in my mind at this point. He does plan to transfer to IMG Academy for his senior season. He'll be closer to the University of Alabama in a way, so Alabama could stay in contact with him better. He does have a great relationship with Alabama's special teams coach and Texas area recruiter Jeff Banks. So we'll have to see how that plays out. The last guy I think Alabama has a good chance of landing is 5-star defensive end Dylan Brooks out of Hanley High School in Hanley, Alabama. Alabama has hosted this guy numerous of times. He always talks about his relationship with Alabama's outside linebacker coach, Sal Sinceri. He once visited Alabama just to talk to Sal Sinceri. He told me that he just wanted to talk football with Coach Sinceri, and he has a great relationship with the Sinceri family and Sal Sinceri in particular. He also told me that he had one of his greatest visits ever to any school to the University of Alabama this past season. Alabama hosted him for an unofficial visit this past weekend. He told me that visit went well. Alabama's coaching staff really just talked to him about how they will use him in their defense, how they're going to use him at the outside linebacker position, and basically where he will fit when it comes to their defense. And this is another guy who's been recruited by the regular schools that you expect to come after one of the top defensive ends in the nation. LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss, all of those top SEC schools are basically really pushing for Brooks. So I think Alabama is in a great position with him as well. He's an in-state guy. Alabama can really work that angle. Hanley High School is close to the University of Alabama, with it being inside the state of Alabama. Auburn is really pushing for him as well, so it's going to be an in-state battle as well for Dylan Brooks. I think Alabama is in a good position with him as well, and those are just three guys to look out for when it comes to Alabama's 2021 recruiting class. I can roll off a whole bunch of more names to basically just look at some guys who are Alabama's 2021 targets, but those are guys who I think Alabama's in a great position with. It wouldn't surprise me if Alabama got a verbal commitment from one of those guys if they wanted to come out and announce in the next couple of months. That will do it for this edition of The Process. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Be sure to subscribe to Touchdown Alabama on YouTube. Download the Touchdown Alabama app to stay updated on everything Alabama football and everything Alabama football recruiting. Pick up a subscription to TouchdownAlabama.com where you pay $5.95 a month. You'll be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles, as well as receive our yearly and annual print issue magazine. We are gearing up to release our print and annual magazine very shortly, so be sure to subscribe to Touchdown Alabama today so you can get your hands on our upcoming issue where Tua talk about Lower Doors Grace to cover. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine.